around my story.
Hi, my name is Laura. I'm 23 years old, and I teach art. I recently got married to the love of my life, Norman. I considered him my friend, my brother, my son, and my husband. We loved to prank each other, even after we got married. For instance, one time I turned off all the lights in the apartment, dressed up as a monster, and scared the living daylights out of him when he came back from the store. Another time, he damaged my car. I put mayonnaise on his toast. I did worry sometimes that our jokes might go too far. I mean, he did get really mad at me once. He stopped talking to me for 2 days, even though I apologized profusely many times. After that, our pranks sort of stopped. I figured our pranking days were over. About a month later, I returned home to find a letter on the floor. I opened it and read it. If you don't pay us 100,000 by Friday, we will kill Norman. I smiled. Norman was pranking me again. When he returned home, I hugged him and showed him his prank letter. He read it carefully, and his brow furrowed. He appeared seriously frightened and swore that this was not part of any prank. He told me that we needed to leave town as soon as possible. I asked him why, and he told me that before he married me, he had stolen a gold statue from a motorcycle gang. I asked him why he couldn't just return it with an apology, and he told me that the statue was worth a lot of money and could make us really wealthy. That night, an armed masked burglar broke into our apartment and confronted us with a gun. He said to Norman, "Hello, Norman, long time no see. You need to choose between the statue or your wife. Choose now." Norman was hesitant. Then he steadfastly said, "I can't give up the statue. Take my wife." The masked man turned towards me. He pointed the gun at me in a threatening manner. I was frantic. I was staring at Norman in shock. Suddenly, the masked man ripped off his mask. It was Keanu, Norman's brother. Norman sat down, laughing so hard he could hardly stop to breathe. Between laughs, he said, "This is payback for the last prank of yours. I was so mad at him that day, but it's all right. He doesn't know what I have planned for him."
A vindictive ghost. Love is the biggest treasure in my life. Good memories, exciting adventures, happiness, sadness, dreams. All these matter and help people endure suffering in their lives. My name is Alex. I'm 18 years old and currently in the 12th grade. I used to live in a small remote village with my parents. I was their only child. My parents raised me well, educated me, and taught me good manners. I see the fruits of their labor in me in every difficult situation I face. For example, after I was murdered, I knew exactly what to do. Intrigued? Are you eager to hear my story? Let's go. When my father received a promotion, we moved from our small village to the big city. I had many nice memories of that little remote village. I had many friends there that I used to play, joke, and laugh with. I feel like I left half of my soul in that village. My father bought us a nice home in a quiet neighborhood. I liked the place the moment we arrived. Our neighbors were nice, and they offered to help us move in. I liked them all. I felt that I would make many new friends in my new neighborhood. One day, I went to the supermarket to buy some necessities for my mom, when suddenly, I bumped into a girl named Rachel. We were coincidentally buying the same item, and there was only one left. I got to it first, but seeing that she wanted it also, like a true gentleman, I offered it to her instead. Initially, she politely declined, but then she gladly accepted my kind gesture in the end. I ended up walking her home and discovered that she was my neighbor. I fell in love with her at first sight. Once we arrived at her home, we said goodbye, and she said she would see me tomorrow. I wanted time to pass quickly so I could see her again. As I was walking to school the next day, I met her along the way and we walked together. I was overjoyed. After arriving at school, she introduced me to her friends, and then I went to my class. The teacher's aide welcomed me and directed me to my class. When I entered the class, I was surprised to see Rachel there. She was in my class. I entered the class and sat in a desk on the last row. During a class break, Rachel was sitting with her friends. When she saw me sitting alone, she left her friends and came over and sat with me. Suddenly, a boy named Mario, older than us, entered the class with a group of his cohorts. They looked like a gang of thugs to me. He said to me, "Hey you, If you want to live, you'd best stay away from Rachel. Rachel seemed afraid and was visibly shaking at this point. I told him, if you're trying to pick a fight, creep, I'm ready. He grabbed me by my collar and threw me onto a desk, then turned around and quickly left. Rachel explained, he wants to date me, but it'll only happen in his dreams. Rachel and I spent a lot of time together at school, but we weren't safe from Mario's bullying. One day, we decided to go to a rocky hillside to sit beside the river and watch the sunset. I got our bikes ready and off we went down the road, laughing and talking. I had decided before this trip that I would tell her about my love for her. I chose this trip to tell her because it seemed like it would be an unforgettable moment, and it really was. After we arrived, I looked into her eyes, kneeled down on my knees, and gave her a present. Then I said, I love you, Rachel. She was surprised, to say the least, and put her hand over her mouth. Then I suddenly heard a camera flash and a voice say, "Cut! Let's repeat this scene again." I looked around to see Mario and his gang. One of them was holding a camera. I shouted angrily, "What are you doing here? If you want to fight, I'm ready, but leave Rachel alone." I heard Rachel laughing, and it sent a chill down my spine, for she wasn't laughing in a joyful manner, but in a mocking one. Then she began clapping her hands and said, "You are really brave, Alex, but you are also an idiot." I froze. I couldn't believe my eyes when Rachel walked over and stood beside Mario, smiling. Mario said, if you had asked around, you would have known that Rachel and I always welcome new students this way. You're our sucker of the week. I spat out, "You're all pigs." I punched him in the face, and he counterpunched me in the stomach. He said, "Do you realize how stupid you are?" I spit in his face, and he became enraged and pulled me towards him by my collar. Rachel tried to stop him. He threw me into the river. The last thing I remember as my head went under the water was Mario's derisive, self-satisfied laughter. When I woke up, I was lying on a wooden bed with an old man sitting beside me. He told me that I had been unconscious for 4 days. I asked him where I was and how I had gotten there. He told me that he found me unconscious floating in the river and that he had rescued me, saved me from drowning. I thought, oh my God, my parents must be so worried about me. I tried to get up and felt an excruciating pain that stopped me. I saw that my leg was broken and that the stranger had bandaged it as best he could. I asked him to call my family. He said he had no telephone, but he offered to visit my family and tell them what had happened and that I was okay. I told him that I would be so grateful if he could do so. I accepted his offer and thanked him. He returned with a newspaper in his hand and had a sad look on his face. I read the paper which said that I was presumed dead, having drowned in the river because they couldn't find my body. I was angry at Rachel and Mario, and also worried for my parents at the same time. I asked the man to please take me home. Then I crept into my home to see my parents sleeping. They were holding a photo of me and looked sad. I didn't wake them, but rather snuck over to Rachel's house. She was speaking on the phone, so I eavesdropped. She was saying, "I didn't expect this to happen, but it's all good. Maybe he's in a better place now." What an idiot and a fool he was. Then she laughed. I was pretty upset to hear her mocking laughter without any regret whatsoever of being involved in causing my death. I returned home and encountered my father in the bathroom. When he saw me, he was initially startled and incredulous, but then I hugged him, and he began crying tears of joy. Then Mother woke up and I hugged her too. They asked me what had happened and I told them everything, but I asked them not to reveal that I wasn't dead yet. They asked me why, and I told them I would explain later. I decided to exact some sweet revenge on my would-be murderers. That night, I tacked a letter on Rachel's front door. The next day, she found it and read it. The scribbly handwriting said simply, "I'm coming for you." It was signed, Alex's Ghost. After reading it, she immediately looked around to see if anyone was nearby who might have delivered the letter, but there was no one in sight. I sent this same letter to Mario and to each of his gang members too. I sent these letters on a daily basis for several days. Then one day, I took my scheme to the next step. I sent a letter to Mario with Rachel's forged signature and a letter to Rachel with Mario's forged signature. The letters told them to meet each other at the same site where they had killed me. I was hiding in the trees when they arrived. Rachel asked Mario, "Why did you want to meet me here?" He replied, "Me? You asked me to meet you here." Rachel denied that she had done any such thing. Suddenly, I walked slowly out from the trees and said, "I am the vindictive spirit of Alex's soul, and I have come to take my revenge on you two murderers." Suddenly frightened, they got down on their knees and pleaded with me to forgive them, and they said, "We threw you in the river, but we didn't mean to kill you. It was an accident." Then a police car siren sounded, and a police car's blue lights began flashing, and several policemen came out from hiding in the trees. Having heard Mario and Rachel's confession, the police took them into custody. As Mario and Rachel were being escorted away, I said to them, "Now who's stupid, idiot?"
Hey everyone, my name is Gwen. My story is different from anything you've ever heard before in your life. We all have grandparents, and we all love them very much. When they die, they leave an empty space in our hearts. It's never easy. My grandpa died a year ago. Before he died, he left me an old weird-looking chest, which I never thought to open before, until today. I opened the chest, but all I found in it were 2 pieces of paper. One of them had only 2 words, Grandpa's house, and the other had a map drawn on it. I thought for a while, then I decided to go to my grandpa's old house and check things out. So, I went to the house. As I took out the key to open the door opened wide. There was no one else there. I was scared, but I was curious to find out more about the map, so I went in. As soon as I got inside, the door slammed shut behind me. I was shocked and scared, but I wasn't gonna back out now. The house looked so creepy and eerie, like it was abandoned for 100 years, and it felt so cold, cold, like standing on ice. I opened the map in my hands and looked around. It showed the inside of the house. I followed the path till I reached the door. When I stood in front of it, it opened slowly on its own. Terrified, I took 2 steps back, but I glimpsed a shadow inside, so I moved forward. I stepped in, but with nothing under my feet, I fell, rolling over down the stairs. It wasn't a room, it was the basement. I tried to get up, but there was something on my legs. Of course, it was too dark to see what it was. Every time I take it off, it falls back again. I looked for my phone, but it wasn't in my pocket. Oddly enough, when I looked again, it was there. I took it out, and I turned on the flashlight, and there was my surprise. On my legs was the bony arm of a skeleton. I kicked it away and stood up quick. I lit around the room with my phone, but it was full of skeletons all over. Of course, no need to tell you I was scared the heck out of my wits. What happened next was beyond the understanding of an average person. The eyes of one of the skeletons turned bright red, and they were staring right at me. My feet started moving backwards automatically, and I found 2 bony hands clasping my neck. I freaked out, but then, suddenly, all the skeletons moved and stood in 2 lines, clearing a path for me. The map in my hand was glowing and indicating a place in the room. I moved towards it, slowly, as my knees buckled together. There was a huge chest. When I opened it, I found a ton-load of money. Strangely enough, all the skeletons had disappeared, and the furniture in the room was floating around the air. I got scared, and I ran for it, but I came to the stairs, and I found the door locked. It wouldn't open. The skeletons appeared around me once again, and they were pulling me off the stairs. I soared through the air and landed on the chest. Then I was out cold. When I came to, I found myself inside the chest, like it was a coffin of some sort, and I was lying inside, feeling numb all over. I could see the sky, but it was cloudy. I felt like I was being buried. Then I heard a voice. It said, "Welcome to your grandpa's treasure." This is what happens to people like me, dumb people like me who follow a stupid map to look for their grandpa's worthless treasure. They'll tell you their stories from their graves.